Welcome everyone to Module 2 of the Introduction to AI Tools for Teaching and Learning. Let's get started with some of our goals for today's lesson. Today's lesson will offer structure and guidance as you experiment with generative AI tools. And just like the previous module, you will have additional resources like videos and guides to engage with just below this embedded video. Some of those videos and guides will walk you through the process of setting up the accounts that you will need to experiment with generative AI tools, so don't worry if you're not sure how to use those quite yet. In today's lesson, we'll start with the basics and get you acquainted with common AI tools that you can use to generate various types of content. For those of you who are very experienced with using generative AI tools, you may find the content about creating custom GPTs to be useful. So in this recording, we'll focus primarily on generating text and images, though there will be additional resources for generating other types of content like music and code and more. So we will also focus on some of the ethical concerns related to AI content generation, as well as some of the strategies and methods you can use and consider encouraging your students to use so that you can generate content ethically. These concepts and your experimentation with these tools will help you in subsequent modules as you begin to gain skills to detect the usage of AI and form policies that govern the appropriate use, if any, of AI tools by students in your courses. So let's dive in, starting with text generation. Creating text with AI has been all over the news for years now. It's not a new concept, though. ChatGPT by the company OpenAI is likely a name you're familiar with, and the GPT stands for Generative Pre-trained Transformer. Other big players include Google with Gemini, Copilot by Microsoft, and Claude by Anthropic. These products are examples of frontier generative AI models, which are highly capable, general-purpose AI systems that push the boundaries of what's possible with current technology. ChatGPT and other frontier models are task-based large language models, which have been trained on enormous amounts of language data. ChatGPT in particular has become widely used for its ability to produce natural, human-sounding language. In short, anyone can prompt these programs to produce writing. Now, you'll hear the word prompt several times throughout this lesson, and hopefully you have already encountered this term from the glossary in this course. In review, prompting refers to the process of entering instructions and/or keywords to direct the AI software to generate a specific output. In other words, we're giving the AI a thing to do, a thing to create. In this case, we can prompt ChatGPT to write something. So here's what I mean. Here we are in ChatGPT. You will begin to experiment with this yourself by following further instructions in this module. For now, I just want to show you how this works if this is your first time. I'm going to prompt ChatGPT to generate an essay that analyzes Harper Lee's novel To Kill a Mockingbird. To accomplish this, I'm going to speak to it like I would to a person. I'm just going to enter a prompt that says, write an essay analyzing To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. You're watching AI work in real time. It's very likely that by the time you even see this video, things will have gotten faster and better. In fact, recent research suggests that these frontier models could become 1,000 times more powerful by the late 2020s or early 2030s, driven by increased computing power and algorithmic efficiency. If this is the first time you have seen ChatGPT in action, you might be panicking, and that is both okay and totally normal. Or maybe you find yourself at the other end of the spectrum where this excites and inspires you to question how this incredibly powerful tool can be leveraged for the good of your students and even humanity as a whole. These questions are all totally normal. Imagine what your students might think or how they might feel seeing this type of thing work for the first time. As you can see, we now have a brief essay on the prompt I provided ChatGPT with, and you will likely notice how well written it is. This certainly is cause for concern, especially considering the projected advancements in frontier AI models. But the more you play with it, the more you will come to be able to recognize it and understand its implications for the future of education and society as a whole. It's worth noting that within a week of publicly launching its service, ChatGPT reached 1 million users. That is unprecedented. This tool is wildly popular for a reason, but it is just that, a tool. We as humans are responsible for ethically using these tools. One example of ethically using AI text generators is to give credit where it's due and avoid plagiarism. Don't copy and paste something directly from ChatGPT without giving credit, and don't take everything it produces at face value. AI text generators don't necessarily understand what they write. They just produce the writing. Fact-checking and critical thinking will be increasingly important as we use these tools more and more in our daily lives. Another ethical problem with AI text generators is the issue of bias. This can be demonstrated through racial bias, political bias, gender bias, and more. It's important to be aware and conscious of the probability of bias being present in the text that AI generates, because there's bias in the data that the AI was trained on, and the humans that supported the training process also brought their own biases into the process, no matter how unintentionally. Again, this text may be a starting point, but generally speaking, avoid copying and pasting. This is a tool to help you enhance your writing, not replace it. And in addition to helping you enhance your writing, AI text generators can be used as a teaching aid. For example, you might try demonstrating this to students and do a live grading session in class to show them where the GPT output falls short. You might also use it to demonstrate what a writing voice means and what its value is, because students notice when voice is missing from writing, no matter how polished it is. You might also use ChatGPT or something like it to brainstorm, either live in class or by yourself. You can also paste text into the prompt field and ask ChatGPT or other products to rephrase something to be friendlier, to be simpler, or even more academic. It can analyze writing and summarize items. It can even help you identify research sources and potential references that you can use to enrich your courses. Just remember that everything that these types of AI models produce is average. The outputs are well written, certainly, and usually pretty clear, but one big limitation of natural language AI models is, in the words of Pinar Demirdag, a normalization of mediocrity. It is a tool that we must use thoughtfully and cautiously, and if we do not outright ban its use in our courses, we must carefully guide students to approach generative text AI models with caution. In the last few years, AI-driven apps used to alter images have exploded on social media. You might remember images like these all over social media in 2022. These were the images we used for our 2022 Summer Institute here at CSUMB, and these were all created using AI. Now, the big players as of 2022 in image generation are DALL-E, Stable Diffusion, and Midjourney. And one of the biggest changes that has happened in just the last year or so is the ability of some text generators to generate images or even view and make meaning from these images. So for example, OpenAI's ChatGPT now has DALL-E integrated right into the tool. And the same is true of others that can produce multiple types of content like Gemini and Copilot. Another big player is Adobe Firefly. And again, there are so many tools now and more are appearing on what feels like a daily basis. Other tools like Claude, which I've mentioned a few times because I love it. Claude can now view and meaning out of images, including charts and graphs. And by the time you watch this video, it's entirely possible, and likely even, that there will be even more cross-functionality added to these frontier models. For now, we'll focus on image generation as a function rather than a product, given how rapidly these are changing. Another example of a big leap forward was with ChatGPT and its ability to generate voice now. There's a lot of, again, cross-functionality that is here and is still on the way. So to keep things simple, let's take a look at how ChatGPT with DALL-E can generate images based on text prompts. And before we go into that, there will be several links in the instructional materials to free image generators, but they all work very similarly to what you're about to see. Many of these tools are free to a point, or you might have to buy credits or use another premium subscription to gain access to the tools. So please, again, all of this is changing so quickly. Please don't hesitate to reach out to your facilitator if you notice that one of the links is no longer working or is no longer free. This stuff just changes all of the time. In fact, the first time that I launched the AI training, the previously free image generator went offline within a day or two of launching the course. So these bumps in the road are to be expected. So let's get into the demo here. So here we are in ChatGPT again, just keeping things simple and straightforward. When we're generating images with AI, we have to enter a text prompt that guides the machine to generate the image that we want. There's a lot of information in this module about engineering those prompts to get your ideal image in just a few minutes, but here's just a live walkthrough of the process at its most basic. I'm just going to type in this case, because I'm using something that can create text and it can create images, I want to be really specific and say that I want an image. If you're using something that is primarily an image generator, you could be really, really simple with your prompt. So in this case, I'm just going to write, create an illustration of an otter in Rembrandt's style. Again, if you're using something different, it may be that you can use simpler language like sea otter, Rembrandt style, right? Something like that. The key here is to be specific. So while this image is generating, and now you can see exactly the type of output that you can get. One thing to think about with my particular prompt language, I chose Rembrandt style, and I chose it because Rembrandt's art is in the public domain. It's no longer protected by copyright. So this is just one small example of a way that we can be ethical and we can be thoughtful about how we use AI tools. Even this prompt is probably some degree of a gray area here because the images and the art that was fed as data into the machine may still be protected by copyright. There's no guarantee that the only images used to create this image were all of Rembrandt's work. There's a lot that goes into this. And we'll talk about this more in the reflective activity in this module. But this is just an example of how this works and how quickly it works. It will continue to get faster as well. And I can choose to edit this image depending on what tool I'm using, give it more direction. If you're using something like Midjourney, which is the one that I prefer to use when I'm generating images, it gives me several options to choose from. It'll give me like at least 4 images, and I click on the one that's the closest. I can also ask it to regenerate the image and things like that. So now that you see how easy it is to generate AI text and images, let's talk a little bit more about prompt engineering. So as you have seen by now, the prompt you enter into the AI tool is incredibly important. This is why prompt engineering is a whole new skill to develop and work on. Defined simply, prompt engineering is the practice of creating ideal inputs that get the most ideal outputs from generative AI. There is an art and a science to this, as you will discover the more you work with generative AI tools. Now I'll go over a few suggestions here, but one thing I want to say first is to treat these tools and enter in language that you would enter in when talking to a human. So if I want to get something, just speak as plainly as you can. Basically, I treat it like it is a teaching assistant, right? Like a very knowledgeable teaching assistant. I don't necessarily take everything that it outputs as 100% accurate, but I at least speak to it like I would to a person and guide it like I would a person. You'll see what I mean the more you play with these tools. So here are a few of the practices that have emerged. I would call them maybe not best practices, but they are promising practices that are just emerging right now. One of these is to add details to your prompt. So be specific wherever possible. If you want a picture of an otter, be clear that you want a sea otter as opposed to a river otter, right? And another suggestion is to use parameters wherever possible. Parameters in Midjourney, for example, are indicated by a double dash at the end of the prompt and apply to the overall image. So if you wanted to get an image of a sea otter and ensure that there are no fish in the image, you would type in sea otter and then add the parameter, which is dash dash no fish. Now you can do this to indicate like the quality of the image, the styling, and other factors. There's a field called parameters in certain tools. It's also referred to as a negative prompt. So in our no fish example, we would enter in fish into the negative prompt field. Which brings me to my next point. Always refer to the documentation of your AI image generator for support. Documentation just refers to the technical tutorials for individual tools, and sometimes you can find guidance within a specific tool simply by asking for help. You'll find a lot more prompt engineering resources in the materials below this video. The reason that we want to be really specific about this is that if we write in sea otter no fish, you are for sure going to get some fish in your image. So this is why it's important to refer to that technical documentation to get an idea for how to enter and how to indicate those parameters and basically how to tailor the thing that you want to say to this tool. So for basic stuff, when you're just starting out, you can get some pretty cool outputs just by speaking in very clear, simple, plain language. But you may find, especially if you're doing kind of more advanced things with these tools, that those parameters are going to save you a lot of time and headache, when refining your content. So another item worth mentioning is that whenever you use generative AI, be aware of any privacy and data policies. So if you want to generate an enhanced image of yourself, for example, you want to be sure that how they are going to use your data, your photo, right? I generally err on the side of caution. I try to avoid inputting, things like my own personal photos. But frankly, given how many videos I've uploaded publicly onto YouTube with my face and my voice, my ship has kind of sailed at this point. But if your own likeness is not already pasted all over the internet, often it is as educators, but it is worth being cautious about the content you share and be aware of how it's going to be used. So just be aware of what the policies are for your selected tool, and try to give, especially if you're going to use this with your students, try to give them options for, alternatives for using the tool. Maybe instead of generating an enhanced photo of their own face, maybe they want to generate an avatar that, does not require them to upload their own personal data. So those are the kinds of things to think about. So another important thing about using AI to generate images and other content like text is to be aware that you will very likely not have a perfect end product. This is an opportunity for humans to remain at the center of art generation. We have the vision, we have the creative agency to point the AI tool in the right direction. For example, we can take the image that AI produces and download it to further hone and alter it until we have what we want. But it bears repeating that generative AI is a tool. So let's talk about some of the ethical considerations that we'll need to make when using this tool. As I mentioned, one of the biggest ethical considerations is copyright infringement. In 2023, the U.S. Copyright Office ruled that creators cannot copyright AI-generated images or writing or video or anything else. That means that if you use AI-generated images, anyone else can reuse them. However, if you edit those images or add your own content, your human-generated content and edits are your own. So in this particular case, we have someone who created a children's book that was illustrated with AI images. The AI images in this case could not be protected, but the writing that the author produced themselves could be protected, as that was, again, created by a human. So as we discussed in the previous slide, you can engineer your prompts to guide that AI tool away from copyright infringement, say by invoking the style of an artist in the public domain, things like that. I encourage you to think about the heart of copyright law. We want to avoid hurting living, working artists when we use these tools. In general, I encourage you to approach this with ethics at the heart of whatever you create. Now, whether that involves using a prompt that guides AI to produce images in the style of the classics or other copyright-free work, or perhaps you will use those AI images as inspiration rather than an end product. No matter how you use these items, always disclose your use of AI as much as possible. Be transparent about it. For example, if you use AI as a starting point, it's worth showcasing the changes that you made to the image so that the human element is clear. Now, we have discussed quite a bit from how to generate AI content ethically to prompt engineering. We started by reviewing some of the frontier AI models, then discussed ethical concerns for text as well as image generation, and then we discussed methods including prompt engineering strategies that we can use to keep ethics at the heart of any work we do that is enhanced by AI. So let's talk about the upcoming activity. So your task at this point is to experiment. In the instructional materials, you will find several resources that will prepare you to start practicing with various generative AI tools. Try generating multiple types of content and consider the potential uses of these tools for both you in your educator role and your learners. No matter what your role is on campus, these tools just might make an impact on your daily workflows. That being said, do approach these tools cautiously when considering if and how you might integrate them into your work or into your life, if at all. But I do hope that you can keep an open mind. Consider, will these AI tools be necessary for your learners to know how to use them in order for them to be successful? If so, consider how this might impact your approach. A lot of this is very discipline specific. A lot of it depends on what level of students you're teaching. Are you teaching freshmen the fundamentals? Are you teaching graduate students? This all will impact your approach. And another thing to keep in mind as you experiment is that you will showcase some of the things that you create in the reflective activity for this module. So be prepared to share whatever it is that you create. Working with AI can be exciting, it can be fun, it can also be concerning. But it is important to get a feel for these tools and the content that they can produce. This will prepare you for the next module as we will move on to identifying strategies for detecting generative AI and its use in your courses. The more familiar you are with the outputs of these tools, the more informed you will be. So thanks again for watching.